Hey everyone, welcome back to Branded. If you have been following the Brand AF series that I've been rolling out, you already know that this is not about motivation and it's not about hyping yourself up in order to try harder. It's about what your business is actually communicating, whether you intend it to or not. So, we started the series off by looking at your calendar because how you treat your time 100% tells the truth about how your business is being run. And then we talked about boundaries because what is life without boundaries? Because how available you make yourself teaches people how to treat your business, right? Then we cleaned up your business behind the scenes, how it actually is operating. Because when everything is living in your head, your business becomes heavier than it needs to be, right? And then last week, we looked at your digital front door. This is the experience that people have the moment they step into your world. So, this is like, what does it feel like to arrive in your business? Are the lights on? Do they feel guided? Do they feel confused? So, today we're going to continue this journey of the brand alignment formula because all of these little pieces fit together to create this brand that feels really fucking aligned. So, today we're going to talk about this layer that quietly touches everything, your messaging. So, here's the truth that most people don't really want to look at, right? They really don't want to like become aware of. If your calendar is super aligned, if your boundaries are super clear, if your business is running smoothly and your digital front door is looking really, really good, but you're still having to constantly explain what it is you do, then your messaging is being misunderstood. And more times than not, it's not necessarily misunderstood. It's almost like your messaging is too polite to actually communicate to the people that it is supposed to speak to. So if you feel like you're constantly hopping on, like, oh, I'm just going to hop on a really quick call to explain my offer. And if that's happening all the time, this episode is for you. If you feel like you're constantly sending super long follow up emails to clarify what you actually meant, this episode is for you. If you feel like you're constantly answering the same questions over and over again, or perhaps you're reframing your work depending on who you're actually talking to in order for them to like understand it, this is the episode you want to tune into. So, when you're having to do this kind of stuff, like constantly hopping on calls to explain your offer, rework all of your offers in order to fit somebody else's needs, right? When you're doing that, people aren't asking these things of you because they're curious. They're asking because your messaging didn't land the first time around. They're confused. And honestly, a lot of business owners mistake this kind of communication for good engagement. And it really isn't. Sometimes it can be, obviously, hop on a discovery call every now and then. But if you have back to back calls and all you're doing is explaining what you do, when that kind of communication could be done for you through all of the proper channels that really alleviates you having to be present to do those conversations, your website should be doing the talking for you. Your email marketing should be doing the talking for you. Your social media pages should be doing the talking for you. So if you have really clear messaging in all of your areas that you show up, you'll actually find that you have less conversations because you're actually talking to the right people and they already get it. They understand it. Now, if you find that you're having a ton of conversations and none of them are converting, that's because your messaging isn't working. It's not landing. It's confusing people. So, you don't want to mistake this for engagement. Thinking to yourself, like, well, it's really good that people are asking questions. It is. But is it happening more and more and more and more? And, yes, it's great to start conversations. Yes, it's great to connect. But here's the thing, your clear messaging, like I said, will actually reduce those like one off spontaneous conversations, not create more of them. So if your brand is requiring you to be fully present in order to translate what's going on, then your messaging isn't really working. So most messaging problems don't necessarily come from being unclear. And I know that might be a little bit confusing to hear, but let me explain. Most messaging issues, whenever people are like, I just don't get what you do, it's not because you weren't being clear about what you did, about what it is you do. It's usually because you're being too careful. You're being too careful to offend. You're being too careful to sound too confident. You're being too careful to not exclude somebody. You're being too careful by softening your language, or you're being too careful by over explaining something. And all of these unnecessary things that you're doing, they don't make you a bad marketer, right? Like, communication is great, but you're walking that fine line of like running your business down a lane of people pleasing and being really polite versus standing your ground, speaking in your power and saying, this is what I do, this is who I help, and this is how you can achieve XYZ results. Say the damn thing. Say the thing you mean to say. Don't be too polite, because when you become too polite, you start, blending into the noise, and you're really just, you become undifferent than anybody else out there. And it's confusing for people. It's very unclear when you're in this lane that everybody else is in. So, when you're being super polite in your messaging because you don't want to offend somebody, or you don't want to, exclude a certain group of people, ask yourself, do you really want to work with every single type of human that lives on this planet? Probably not. That's why we talk about boundaries. That's why we talk about, who do you want to help? What kind of work do you want to do? What's the impact you want to make? Everybody wants something different for their lives. You have to start finding the people that want the thing that you're offering. Not everybody is ready for it. So when you're too polite in your messaging, you'll start creating inbox traffic. Sure, too much to handle probably with a bunch of people that aren't going to convert, right? You'll start creating calls. Yeah, but they're calls that are really wasting your time versus converting, because they're people that are simply saying, what did you mean whenever you said blah, blah, blah on your post? Like, that's why I wanted to book this call. I wasn't really sure what you meant by that. Be clear, say what you mean, right? And to top this all off, the thing that it really does the most whenever you're too polite in your messaging is it creates this extra emotional labor, right? This, instead of it being physical labor, it's like this emotional labor. It's this heaviness in your business where you're having to constantly explain yourself and translate what it is you mean, because you're just not getting to the point, right? So instead of your brand doing that filtering work for you, right? Your website's doing the filtering, your emailing is doing the filtering, your free resources is filtering. Like, you're trying to find your right people, but you do it by utilizing your brand, not yourself, because that's where you're going to burn the fuck out. So when I say being really polite, I just want to clarify that, like, being nice in your messaging, right? Like, oh, you're just so kind and so nice. It's not the same as being clear. So this is something that I see frequently. Business owners they're kind, they're thoughtful, they're experienced, but they're completely forgettable in their messaging. And it's like, where's the disconnect here? They've confused being neutral with being trustworthy, or being really gentle with being very clear. Or perhaps they're being way too broad when they're just trying to be inclusive. You see how these things can be confusing? Like, when you're way too broad in your messaging, you're trying to be inclusive, but really you're just confusing people. So the brands that you remember, they're usually not very loud. They're not aggressive. They're not rude. They are decisive. They say, this is for you. This is how this works. this is your next step. They don't make you work to try to get it, to try to understand what it is they're saying. And that clarity that they're providing is not harsh. It's respectful. It's respectful of your audience's time. And most importantly, it's respectful of your own time. So you don't have to hop on discovery calls to simply explain your offer that should be explained on your website or in your offer suite, in your link in bio, whatever, right? Wherever that information lives, it should be digested enough in a way that people don't need to hop on a call with you to figure it out. So if your messaging needs more context, if your messaging needs messaging, then it's not done yet. So here's what I want you to sit with. If your message needs a paragraph of context to explain it, then it's not finished. If every post that you make needs a follow-up explanation, it's not finished. If every offer that you make needs an additional voice note to explain the offer, the messaging is not finished. If every inquiry that you have turns into a discovery call just so you can explain the basics, your messaging is not finished yet. And this kind of communication is not connection. These are people just being confused, going, what the hell's going on? I think maybe this is for me, but I'm not really sure. You want people to be a hell yes, this is for me. So you're compensating for messaging that's being too careful, that can't stand on its own, and instead you're spending all of your time explaining it. Strong messaging does not need you in the room. It holds shape without you having to defend it. Polite brands are easy to ignore. Like, that's just a fact. You can come across something and be like, oh, that's so sweet. Are you going to remember it 30 minutes later? No. Polite brands, they sound like everybody else. They avoid strong language or disruptive language that's really going to stop people in their tracks, right? And they try to keep the door open for absolutely everybody when the offer isn't even for absolutely everybody, right? So the uncomfortable truth to this is that if your messaging never risks being misunderstood, it's probably being ignored. Memorable messaging doesn't aim for a consensus of everybody that's reading it. It aims for recognition. Someone to go, whoa, that's me, right? You want that moment of that's me to happen in your messaging. You don't need 100, 1,000, 2,000 people to look at your messaging and be like, oh, that's so kind. That's so nice. That's so right. That's so different than having messaging that lands. So your goal isn't for everyone to agree with you. It's for the right people to recognize themselves immediately. And for the wrong people that your messaging is not for, to just quietly move on. That's what good messaging does. And messaging is also an operational boundary, by the way. This is where this episode really ties into the Brand AF series, because your calendar protects your time, your boundaries protect your energy, your systems are protecting your capacity, and your messaging is protecting your attention. That way you can stay focused and not be answering random communication explaining what your brand should already be doing for you. So clear messaging is going to filter out who reaches out to you, why they're reaching out to you, and what they expect to be doing with you. You'll find that when your messaging is very unclear, the people reaching out to you are all over the board and they want all sorts of different things. But when your messaging is crystal clear and respectful of what it is you do and how you can actually help people, you'll find that the people that reach out to you to inquire about your business, they're already a yes. They just need that extra layer of like, okay, I just need one more like connection to make sure this is really the thing. You know, so the right people, they're going to immediately see themselves, and the wrong people will quietly move on. Polite messaging invites everybody in and then exhausts you while you're trying to manage and sift through the mismatch of people, right? So if you're tired, it's not because you're doing too much, right? It's because your messaging isn't working for you. So here's a little reflection for you as we continue opening up this new year. If you're watching this live, as you head into this new year, here are some questions worth asking. What am I tired of explaining? Where am I softening my language in order to stay comfortable? What truth am I talking around instead of saying directly? These 3 questions, ask yourself honestly, because you don't need to be louder. You don't need to be sharper. You don't need to be someone else. You just need to be clear enough that the right people feel seen immediately. And that's brand leadership. That's you taking charge of your brand and knowing exactly the direction that it's going and knowing exactly what it's communicating. This is one of the most generous things that you can do for yourself and for your business, quite honestly. When you remove the fact of having to constantly over-explain all of your offers and all of your messaging, you will open up so much space in your life for other things. So remember, clear messaging, people will see themselves in it immediately. And the wrong people will walk off quietly. And that's okay. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode. We have a couple more left in the Brand AF series, and they're good. Everything goes together. I think we have 8 episodes in total, so we're more than halfway there. And I hope you really enjoyed it. Check out the show notes for any additional information, and I'll see you next week for a brand new episode. Bye, guys.